ends.
Yeah, I love me some tight ends. But I do want to talk a little bit
There's the
about
clip for the
rookies.
beginning of the show.
I do.
All right, welcome to episode 2 of DB2. I'm David Brem here with Daniel Butler as always.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming to this video. If you wouldn't mind, hit the like button. We'll just do an honor system. I assume you already clicked it, so thank you so much for that. And leave a comment down below if there's anything you want to have us talk about, or just any comment that you hear during the show. That would be amazing, and I'll be checking those out. One of us will be. So thank you so much for that. And to lead things off, in the last episode, if you missed it, we talked mostly about wide receivers and tight ends. Go check that out if you have any interest in. Of course you do. It was great. Jamar Chase was a heavy topic. Kyle Pitts was a heavy topic. We really talked about those for the most part. And today we're going to talk about quarterbacks and running backs. We're going to lead off with quarterbacks. What do you want to talk about here with quarterbacks?
All right, so I think we can all agree, like, kind of even the top 5 quarterbacks are kind of set in stone. Like, at least from my perspective, you're not really messing with those that much. Like, you're not taking anybody above Patrick Mahomes. Some people seem to like Herbert more than him. I've seen him ranked ahead of Mahomes sometimes, which is weird. But or not Herbert, Josh Allen. But to me, I don't know if you agree, but I feel like those kind of top 5 are kind of set in stone because we're kind of going lower than that. My biggest thing is I don't understand why Russell Wilson hasn't like why Russell Wilson isn't in that kind of top 5 question. Like there with like Lamar and Dak. Like I don't understand why he is a few spots that he's close, but to me I would rather have Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, or Dak Prescott. I just would.
Yeah, I mean, what I think here. So we have. I'm looking at. There's 8 quarterbacks in the top. So I don't see. Okay, top
60.
50. Yeah, top 60. Yeah, top 60. There's 8 quarterbacks. Justin Herbert right now is listed as quarterback 8. This is a consensus. So it's depending on the website, it may be a little bit different. But quarterback 8, Dak Prescott. Remember, Dak Prescott was #1 fantasy quarterback last year. If he would be able to extrapolate from those first 5 weeks through 16
Yeah.
weeks, he was clearly #1 quarterback, way ahead. So he had an amazing start. We'll see if he's able to pick up where he left off. But I don't know. Like I was looking at quarterbacks and I was looking at the point system, and I told you I would talk about this, but I didn't go too much into detail. Quarterback 1 last year was Josh Allen. So Josh Allen obviously had a huge season. Kyler
Yeah.
Murray was 2. We had Aaron Rodgers 3. Patrick Mahomes was average. I guess he played one less game, so his average was actually slightly above Josh Allen. So those 4 quarterbacks, all great. I mean, really, all of Deshaun was great. Russell Wilson was great. If you look at the difference between quarterback 1 and quarterback 10, which is Josh Allen to Lamar Jackson, difference in points, 2.5 points a game. And I'm going to come back to this when we talk about running backs, but because I want to talk about more about that. But there's only a difference of 2.5 points. So I really do not think you really need to value quarterback at all that much when it comes to, unless there's somebody you really like. But we see it. Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Ryan Tannehill, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson all averaged about 22 points or more. And Josh Allen averaged 25. So there's not a huge difference between those top 10. Now, you do have a little bit of fall off. Then you have Kirk Cousins, a few points less. So there's clearly a drop off after 10. So I did pick 10 because it kind of made my argument. But 11, Matt Ryan, 12, Derek Carr. There is a drop off. So if you have somebody that you really like, I think that there's a lot of quarterbacks that you could wait a little bit on. You may
Yeah.
not want to wait all the way till quarterback. Some people might be taking 2 quarterbacks before you take one. That does happen. I've been in that situation, but you may not want to wait that long. But if you can get a Justin Herbert or a Lamar Jackson, whatever, like Tom Brady, depending on your league where people are drafting, if you can get these guys kind of late, there's really not that much difference between quarterback 1 and quarterback 10. I'm actually surprised. I don't know if the ADP of let's see. I'm looking for the ADP of Patrick Mahomes, 15. I don't know about that. I mean, the difference between quarterback 1 and quarterback 10 is 3 points, and you're going to take it at 15? I don't know. That to me seems really bizarre. Seems way too high, and that's it. That's assuming you actually are drafting quarterback 1. You are picking him 1, but Patrick Mahomes was quarterback 4 last week. Average wise, he was 1, but like, are you even drafting the number 1 quarterback? You might be drafting the number 5 quarterback in the first. Mahomes might be the 5th ranked quarterback. So he's very good. Obviously, if he plays all 16 games, would be obviously he's the best quarterback for fantasy wise at least. But I don't know. I just don't see the difference in quarterbacks. I just don't see why you would take him over. I'm looking below Stephon Diggs, Antonio Gibson. I'm definitely taking Antonio Gibson over Patrick Mahomes, DK Metcalf, all these guys. There's probably, I mean, there's a list of people I would rather have over Patrick Mahomes.
But one guy I've ended up with in over half my leagues is Tom Brady. Like Tom Brady is currently he's just around that 70 mark in ADP. I've ended up with him I ended up with Patrick Mahomes in 1 because he fell to he fell to round 3, and I got Tyreek Hill late in the first round. So that was more just because it's gonna be fun to watch. Like every time that they link up, I always like to do that, and that league means very little. But one guy, like if I can get Tom Brady at 70, why would I draft Patrick Mahomes at 15?
Yeah,
I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, and then we look down at quarterback 10. So if we take the argument I was making about the difference in points, you have Matthew Stafford at quarterback 10.
You just wanted a reason to bring Matthew Stafford.
I do love Matthew Stafford.
Only reason.
But quarterback 10, if he is quarterback 10 last year, and we follow the points from last season, the difference is only 2.5, 3 points from pick 15 to pick 80, 81. So that's, if 10-team league, just because that's easy math, that's a mid-round second round pick, or like that's like such a huge difference.
Yeah,
you're getting such a better play. You could get a Stephon Diggs and then have a Matthew Stafford as opposed to a Patrick Mahomes, and then down here we'll take in Devontae Smith from Philly. We'll see if he's any good, but like I don't know. Like you would obviously, I think the Stephon Diggs Matthew Stafford is clearly the better connection, clearly the better duo there. And then you have Ryan Tannehill at quarterback 11, who was
just going to say
quarterback 7 last year. So you have.
You're not going to like to hear this. I would go Tannehill over Stafford.
They're right there. I like. They're both very close.
But yeah, to get that set up that late in the draft, like you've got, like you said, if we're talking 10-team league, you've got 7 players already and then you've got a decent you've got a quarterback that's not going to lose you the game. Like it's not going to lose you the season to have Ryan Tannehill. Like if you whiff on some earlier picks, so yeah, and this isn't new information. People are realizing that the difference in quarterbacks is crazy. But I think we're not talking a large difference between I didn't get Mahomes, so then I'm waiting. Like don't get Mahomes, don't get Josh Allen, and wait anyways. Like there are positions like tight end, which we've touched on a little bit, where yes, get the stud. But this might be a situation where you don't bother getting the stud, even if he falls a little bit into, like, maybe it was stupid of me to take him even in the 3rd round. I did because fantasy football is supposed to be fun, but numbers don't really point out to that being a decent idea.
Yeah, even if you knew that Patrick Mahomes was quarterback 1, you knew it, you would guaranteed it. Where would you take him? Because I don't think you would take him 15. Like, even if you knew he was going to be number 1, which is where his ADP is. And that's a guarantee, if I said guaranteed. So, I mean, maybe you take him in the 3rd round, but that's a guarantee. And, because guarantees are... you never have a guarantee.
Tail end of the 3. And
now, I will say...
Had I not taken Tyreek Hill, I wouldn't have taken... Like, that was purely from an enjoyment of this fantasy thing we do.
And of course, that's what you want to have fun. Depending on how much money is at stake, it's fun to win, as well. So that's a big part of it. And making money is always fun. Quarterback 12 is Jalen Hurts, which I think is crazy that he's quarterback 12. And I don't see how he's quarterback 12. I think he should be lower. But
I don't think he should be on a team.
If you like Jalen Hurts,
he should not be on your fantasy team.
I don't know. I just don't see myself ever drafting him. So I think after you get past Tannehill to Stafford, you don't want to wait longer than that. You probably want to you want to pull the trigger there, but I wouldn't wait any longer unless you really like, Joe Burrow, quarterback 13, which I think could have a good season. I'd rather have him over Jalen Hurts. But
Right.
again, I feel better about Stafford just because the uncertainty with the offensive line, and we'll see. But I still think Burrow could have a good season. Uh, he was on track. It seemed like he was, finding his way before he got hurt. And then Trevor Lawrence, quarterback 15, Matt Ryan, quarterback 15, 14 for Lawrence, 15 for Matt Ryan. I think there's a little bit of a drop off there. So, but that again, we're talking pick 128, 129, so pretty far down in
Well, I'm just
ADP.
like I'm looking at these ADPs and like I don't want to like rip on Hurts too much, but I'm counting Burrow, Ryan, Lawrence, Mayfield, Roethlisberger. I would rather have all 5 of those guys over Jalen Hurts, and I mean the last of those 5 is getting drafted pick 152.
I think the point is, to me, like, I don't know if I'd rather have it more than them, but I don't feel any better having Jalen Hurts than
Oh,
than
see,
any of
I
those
I
guys.
would feel much better having any of those 5.
Okay,
Trevor Lawrence is kind of up in the air, but definitely Burrow, Ryan, Mayfield, and Roethlisberger. I would feel
and
way more confident leaving with those 4.
we'll see. I mean, I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts. We're not sold on him, but I think even if he is, even if you are kind of thinking this is about like quarterback, 10 to 12 somewhere in there, I don't know. I just feel like there's I don't see the upside with him either. So I don't know. I could be wrong on that. We could be wrong on that. But I
Well,
don't.
what we're saying is wait to that 8 to 11 quarterback
Just
range.
because and if you do wait even longer, remember there was Justin Herbert that was in the top 10 last year. There was some guys that were that you may, I guess it was really Justin Herbert was the big one. Ryan Tannehill, I don't think he was number 7. Herbert being a rookie, so there is probably going to be 1 or 2 guys that is outside the top 10 to 12 that will go into top 10 or 12. Yeah, so we have Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson. These guys, I think we could probably say pretty sure that Mac Jones. I mean, I know it's. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 to 12 quarterback.
No.
Zach Wilson's not going to be a top 10 to 12 quarterback. Watch Zach Wilson be like that. He's going to be in.
Yeah.
No. So
I think the only one you have to like Lawrence could sneak his way in there, and then if Chicago decides to start,
I mean, it really comes down to playing time with a lot of these.
yeah,
Justin Fields, Trey Lance. I still think Trey Lance because of just it could be a great fantasy quarterback even if he's not amazing, and he could still put up good numbers. Justin Fields as well. I don't love the fact that he plays in Chicago. I think later in the season that could be a problem fantasy wise, but if you think about that, playing up north, playing in Minnesota, playing in Green Bay, playing in Chicago, Detroit's obviously you don't have to worry about that, but that could be a problem. Those games late in the year as well. But I still
I don't think any of the rookies are going to be a factor this year. I just really don't.
we'll see. We'll see. If Trey Lance does. But again, even if you're like you don't have to draft these guys. It's a good chance they don't get drafted. And a 12-team league, 10 to 12-team league, or maybe they will, but they could be drafted really late if you feel good about
Trevor
your team.
Lawrence will get drafted because somebody sees number 1 pick.
Yeah, and that's fine, and you might even draft him yourself, but which is fine, depending on the rest of your team. If you pick up a quarterback later on, and don't draft him if you draft Patrick Mahomes or one of these studs. You don't need to have Trevor Lawrence. But if you pick up one of these guys in the later, 8 to 12 range, and you're like, I don't know, like I never advise drafting 2 quarterbacks, but if you absolutely feel very good that once Trevor Lawrence gets going, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, then okay. I still don't think it's worth it taking up a spot on somebody else, but that's going to take a roster spot until he proves himself. I don't think it's worth it, but if you do want to do that, that's fine. I do think the Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence all would have potential to be top 10, but it just depends on playing time, and then I think there's a lot of other factors that they still have to get a little bit lucky. I think to finish in the top 10.
Yeah, I grabbed. I grabbed Lawrence in my league where I'm forced to have a backup quarterback for Tom Brady, but other than that, I think maybe if you draft a guy like Stafford, who's in a new situation and you don't 100% know what he's going to be, or Tannehill, or like you draft one, like we said, one of those kind of back of the top 10 guys, maybe stash him just in case he really takes off. But for the most part, he's the only one I could see being any sort of a factor this year from the rookie class.
Yeah, so that's fair enough. So moving on to running back. Like I said in the last episode, we really focused on wide receiver and tight end. So we talked a lot about that, and I want to talk about tight end though, about running back. So I was looking at the ADPs, and I saw that Travis Kelce had an ADP of around like 12. It's like the 12th pick on all these different websites combined. And then we go all the way down, tight end 2. Darren Waller picked 24, tight end 328. So you might like one or the other is better. But I'm looking at this, and then I was looking at the points from last season, and the points difference between tight end 2, Darren Waller, who was Darren Waller, tight end 2, and tight end 10. Like if you wait on even tight end 3, really, because the difference between 2 and 3 is so wide. But the difference between 2 and 10, which 10 and 3 is actually pretty close. I could even just, the difference between 2 and 3 is 6.4 points. The difference between 2 and 10 is like 8 points. And I was thinking, man, that's a lot of points, right? That's 8 points is a lot. Every week, 8 points. That's crazy. Is there a chance that the running back would also do that? And the answer is no. Like, you're not going to get a difference of 8 points anywhere else. So I'm looking at this, somebody like, I'm looking at the tight end, Kittle and Darren Waller. Above them, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back 14. At least that's what I see here. Yeah. So that's not what I remember seeing. Joe Mixon, running back 13. And I just don't see the difference between Joe Mixon and the running back that you would get much later when you drafted tight. Like, I just don't see why. And it's kind of like a revelation as I was going through the point system, going through the points from the previous year. I think that Darren Waller and George Kittle are way undervalued. You're not going to get an 8-point difference. I didn't mention George Kittle because he was injured for half the season. But George Kittle, Darren Waller, 8-point advantage over a tight end you wait on. Even tight end 4, tight end 5, they have a 6-7 point advantage. They are so far ahead of the field. And we'll see what Kyle Pitts does. Maybe you believe in him. But still, those top 3 or 4 guys, so far ahead of the field that you could pick up a Kittle, you could pick up a Waller, and then you could pick up a running back that people are going to be like, oh, your running back kind of sucks. The difference between, Mixon and then you picked up somebody much later. A Melvin Gordon, we'll say. I don't know. You pick up a running back much later, a Mostert. There, you pick up, and you're like, wow, those running backs kind of suck. But the difference between Mixon and Mostert is not 7 points a game. So it's like...
Well, and here's the thing is, I know you keep using Mixon, but if you look at the ADP of like George Kittle this year at number 3, it's more like you're passing on Chris Carson, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs. Like, those are the 3 guys that are kind of right in his...
Yeah, Mixon is much
ADP.
above. I also... Yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Exactly.
But yeah, Josh Jacobs.
So you're not passing on a guy like me. Like, you could have already gotten Mixon, and now you're I'm sorry, I would much rather leave the draft with Kittle and know that I'm solid at tight end than have David Montgomery on my team.
So just to hammer this home, running back 15 last year. I guess let's even look at average instead of just total points. Kenyon Drake, he played 15 games. He was actually running back 16. Kenyon Drake, running PPR, running back 15 by average. Maybe not even. Maybe a little. Average is tough because a lot of these guys don't play all 15 games. Let's just say somewhere around 14 points. I'll even give an extra point. 14 points a game. That is what running back 15 average. 14, 15 points. You could go down the difference. So you're talking 7 points, 8 points. 14 down to, you don't even get down to 7 points until we're getting down to like running back 50. So and I do understand you have to play 2 running backs, maybe 3 running backs. So you have to fill those positions. But we're talking, you take Kittle and then you get a running back later. So you're just swapping. So instead of taking Montgomery and a tight end later, you'll take a tight end, you'll take a running back now, or not even, let's even say like a middle of the road tight end, whatever. Whenever you take your tight end, you're now taking Kittle or Waller and then moving, switching that out for a running back. And obviously that will change your draft a little bit because you might draft a running back before a wide receiver. Things are going to move around a little bit if you draft a tight end instead of a wide receiver or a running back. But I just don't see 7 points anywhere else on the draft. I don't see where you're making that up. You're not getting somebody. You could get lucky. You might get a Jonathan Taylor rookie last year who was running back 4, I think he was running back 6 in PPR. So like you definitely could get somebody like that. But if you just look at it just from a okay, if you draft running back 15, he'll if everybody did their right job, you are going to get running back 15. Tight end 2, you're going to get tight end 2. There's just such a big difference between tight end 2 and tight end 7, tight end 8 than running back 15 and running back 40, 50 or whatever running back, whatever running back is. So, even you don't even have to go back even like running back, I mean you could go really far down. I mean you could even go beyond that. Getting 7 points is just you can't find that. You just don't find 7 points.
Well, and here's the thing: is you're going to end up with running backs who aren't going to give you the ooh of the draft, which isn't a thing anymore because we all draft online. But like there used to be that thing, like people go, "Oh, good pick" or whatever on your pick. But I didn't do this with tight end, but I had a league where I loaded up on wide receiver. We start 3 wide receivers and a flex. Adam Thielen is my flex, and my running backs are still Gus Edwards and Raheem Mostert. Like those aren't big names; they're not flashy names, but I'm not angry about having those 2 guys in my starting lineup. I'm probably going to lose a lot of weeks if you go head to head with running back, but I'm in a much better position at every other spot.
And yeah, those are obviously. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just trying to score the most points. So you don't need you don't need the most points at running back. You don't need the most points at quarterback. You don't need You just need the most points. So
I don't need to win every position.
Yeah. So if you look at running back, Gus Edwards and Raheem Mostert might get outscored by Gus Edwards will get outscored by a few points. I should probably if I look up running back, if you go up against Alvin Kamara and you have Gus Edwards, you're probably gonna get outscored by a lot of points. But we're also talking a first round number 1 pick compared to a much later pick. Well, that means you now have a Devontae Adams or a Stephon Diggs and a George Kittle, or you have all these other positions.
Yeah, I have Tyreek Hill sitting there
at clear advantages.
I'm going to have almost every week I'm going to have a clear advantage at flex with Adam Thielen sitting there. Like there is no other team that their flex is going to I feel comfortable against almost every other team in that league's flex.
And your tight end as well, right? You had a tight end.
I have Robert Tonyan, but that's just because I love him. But that's the one I went Mahomes. So I have Mahomes. I have Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett, and Adam Thielen. Like those are all positions where I feel very confident every week going in that I'm going to at least be on par against with a clear advantage at what I think at flex and probably 3rd wide receiver. I feel like Lockett would be a number 2 wide receiver on most of those. I'm going to, I don't know if it's going to be quick or permanent, but I'm going to try to bring our running back discussion back to running backs because it's turned into a tight end love fest here. I think, and this isn't a draft thing. This is maybe after week 1, you see if somebody panics, but I think Zeke could be a guy because the reports are he's going to be kind of limited in week 1, and he wasn't as good as maybe you'd hope last year, obviously. I think that's a guy where your league. The guy who has Zeke, what kind of like personality he has. I think Zeke could be a guy you could target if he doesn't really perform in week 1, which it looks like he probably won't. Like if that guy's panicking, like, oh no, my first round pick isn't doing what I need him to. I think that could be a guy that you could try to trade for after week 1 and maybe get a decent value on him.
Yeah, maybe get like 90 cents on the dollar. Maybe maybe your like 2nd round pick.
Yeah, you're not going to get him for a 4th round pick, but you might be able to flip a 3rd.
Or like whoever you pick, depending on how well they play, and if somebody does really well for you, you might be able to get a deal there, or maybe like a 2 for 1 or a 2 for 2 when they feel like they're getting the production back. Zeke going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. I think they're unanimously the number 1 defense in fantasy. So I think that it could be an interesting. Yeah, so we'll just have to see how this game plays. These first games are so. I mean, it's going to be so interesting.
There's always one guy in your league who's going to panic, and especially a guy like Zeke who is not going to be 100% for week 1. It is a nationally televised game, so pretty much, I would say 85% of the people who play fantasy football are going to be watching. It's the first game of the season. We're all hyped up for football. They're going to be watching. Zeke doesn't perform. There's a good chance that the Zeke owner in your league might panic just a little bit, and you might be able to get him for a little bit of a steal.
Yeah, or if you see a little too much Tony Pollard, they might be like, "Oh wait, this is not good." Like maybe, like especially if they're in more long down and distance, and Tony Pollard's on the field more. If they're down big, you might see more Tony Pollard than you would think you would see. So it's definitely. I believe in the Dallas offense. They have they're just stacked across the board.
Yeah.
So if Zeke doesn't have a great game, or if they're down and they're passing a lot, and maybe he's not on the field as much as you want, I think that he could be an interesting person to target. To wrap up the running back discussion, I just want to, because we really
You want to talk about tight ends?
No, I don't want to talk about tight ends. Though I do think that Darren Waller, George Kittle are great values. But all right, circling back to running backs, since there hasn't been a whole lot of running back discussion, though I said there would be.
Somebody derailed us straight into tight ends.
Yeah, I love me some tight ends, but I do want to talk a little bit about
the clip for the beginning of the show.
I do. I do love George Kittle and Darren Waller, but running backs, we have some rookies. Last year we did have Jonathan Taylor finish running back 6. This year, Najee Harris, obviously because he's a high draft pick, you expect big things from, or at least decent things from. Is there any other running backs or anything about Najee Harris you want to talk about that stands out?
I'm not super in love with any of the rookies, and I will have Najee Harris on any of my teams, purely because, and we touched on this last week with the running backs. There's so many mouths to feed in Pittsburgh. If I remember correctly, I don't have it pulled up. There, what is it, like 33, like 3 top 30,
something like that.
30 something, yeah. Wide receivers, which I honestly think is also not likely. But if you think that's gonna be the case, like that's just so many touches that need to get to different people. I'm looking at Najee Harris's like draft position. Like I'd rather have Eckler than him. I'd probably rather have Mixon than him. One guy I really like in at running back that I think is getting drafted way too low is Miles Sanders. But Najee Harris, I think, is going to be good long term. I just don't know that he's going to make the impact of a borderline top 5, top 6 running back this year.
Yeah, I mean, right now I have him at running back 11. Right? Oh, that's the ADP. Austin Eckler's right there. Patrick Mahomes, don't understand that. Stephon Diggs, Antonio Gibson, I think is way too low. I think he should be much higher. I like him, and Washington. So yeah, I think he obviously, if you're in that second round, and you're looking for a running back, I think he's a good pick.
I think he'll end up top 15, but I think it's going to be the later part of that.
And we'll see. With Pittsburgh, I don't know. Like I don't see the offense being as good as what their fantasy, but what their fantasy numbers are at, but where they're being drafted. But we'll see. Then you have Trey Sermon in San Francisco. We'll see how the Mostert and Trey Sermon stuff all settles out. I think all of these guys, whether the rookie or the non-rookie, so whether it's Mostert or Trey Sermon, anytime if there's any injury, which we hope doesn't happen, it's going to skyrocket all of these values. Yeah. But Trey Sermon, I think, is interesting in San Francisco. I know he was drafted much later, but we look at a lot of these running backs. They're in Javonte Williams in Denver, running back 27 at pick 61. If Melvin Gordon, or if he just outright plays amazing, if he's on the field, that's going to be great. But right now, Melvin Gordon is running back 30. They're really close. Running back 27, running back 30, because we think it's going to be a completely just a by committee. So you're going 1 week you might have Williams pop off, and then you have Gordon, and then how would that all shape out? And I actually like Melvin Gordon. I think he's a solid running back. I think he's going to be around all year. I don't think Jonathan Williams is just going to take the bulk of the carries. So there are
definitely some opportunities for these guys, though, with the Mostert or the Gordon. Like, those guys could go down. Mostert doesn't have the greatest history of staying on the field. If one of those guys go down, though, they're instant. Like, at that point, but you can't predict that stuff. Like, there are guys who are injury prone or whatever, but I'm not going to bank my entire draft on a guy getting injured.
I'm just not. Yeah, Michael Carter down at pick 95, running back 37. the Jets are, he's not gonna be a breakout. He's not gonna be because he plays for the Jets, unless the Jets are the most surprising team and somehow have a competent offense. I don't see it. So I still think, I drafted Michael Carter. I still think, if he is the starting running back on a team, if you can get that later in the draft, that's good.
You
But
take the chance, yeah.
but I don't really think just because I might be playing him some weeks, and I definitely will have to use him, assuming
Well, and having a middling running back on a team that is probably going to be down and have to throw a lot isn't exactly the formula you want to use for massive running back production.
But yeah, like I said, like he is down all the way down at pick 95.
Yeah, at that
so
low, go for it.
you might find that you need a running back, and he's not a bad choice there. But yeah, you look at the running back rookie wise, and you just don't see. I don't really see any. I don't see any besides Najee Harris, but he's the obvious one. That the running back out of went to Clemson. The guy that Jacksonville drafted. He went down. He's out for the season. So that's unfortunate because he was bound to have a good season as well. So that does stink. But yeah, that's really not. I don't see it besides Najee Harris. Anybody that's breakout. Maybe there will be one. Again, we never know with injuries. There could be somebody that gets a bulk of the workload, and at the end of the day, if you get a lot of touches, you're probably going to put up decent fantasy production. So even if you're not the best running back out there. So a lot of times it's about that. And the last thing, I don't really, because as we're recording, Tampa Bay is playing on Thursday night. I would say watch that backfield because you have 3 running backs.
It'd be awesome to know what's going to happen.
Giovanni Bernard took all third down snaps. So he looks like he's always going to be on the field. And then you have the 2 other running backs and you're like, I don't even know what's going to happen with that offense. I think it's going to be good, but I don't think the running back, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, and then Giovanni Bernard, I think they all have value. You just don't know every week who has the. I know they're not rookies, but I'm interested in that. I don't think Giovanni Bernard has any real solid value because he is really just the third down back.
He's just the third down.
So if you need him, deeper league, you're going to be drafting it. He's going to be on teams. He's going to be on a lot of teams actually. I think he was like 30% owned on one.
He's getting drafted.
He is getting drafted a decent amount. But the other 2 guys, if Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette, something happens to one of those values obviously immediately skyrocket. So any of these running backs by committee doesn't mean you shouldn't draft them. You just maybe have to sit them for a while and kind of wait to see what happens. And if something does, which, I always say, we always want, nothing like everybody would want to stay healthy. But unfortunately, contact sport, injuries do happen. So just keep an eye on that.
Two quick guys that I would just keep my eye on, whether it's if you still have to draft, awesome, but just maybe like wait for them to have a down game because they're not names I feel like people are still undervaluing Gus Edwards, like strongly undervaluing for some reason. Like it's almost like nobody got the memo that he's the guy now. So he's probably like if he performs kind of poorly in week 1, he could be another target guy. And a guy that I really like because his only problem has been usage is Miles Sanders. And I think if they give him the usage, I think Miles Sanders has a chance to pop off. And he's 35 overall, and Gus Edwards it's hard to say because everybody who drafted early didn't draft him very good, but he's still getting drafted fairly late in drafts.
Yeah, and he's one of those that I think has the potential to be like, if you said who would be a top 10 running back that's outside the top 10, maybe like that is well outside the top 10, we'll say, because I don't want to pick like running back 11. That could be a top 10 running back outside the top 10. I think he's one of those that he's not an injury away from being a top 10 running back. A lot of these running backs, I think, are
you need something to happen. There's outside
they could be a top 10, but there probably needs to be an injury if that is going to happen. So that's our takes on running back. I think we pretty much talked about everything there. Did you want to talk about tight ends at all, or are you feeling?
I know you probably do. You got some more tight ends? Honestly, I feel like we've touched on pretty much everything from tight end. I'm higher on Tanyan than a lot of people. I personally think Pitts is going to be the number 3 tight end. I think he's going to pass Waller. Other than that, I'm not touching anybody kind of in between the top 4. Like, I'm not touching Mark Andrews, Hawkinson, Logan Thomas. Like, I'm not going for those guys. Other than that, I feel like we've touched on everything.
So, don't draft a quarterback ever.
At all.
Just leave it blank. Don't draft a tight end unless it's one of the first 3 or 4 guys. Running backs, wide receivers, same old. Get the good ones.
Here's what I'll say about running backs: you don't have to use your first 2 picks on running backs, and I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to.
Yeah, that's what the book says. They read it, they say running back, and then they pass on, pick 18, and Travis Kelce is sitting there, and they're like, nope, I got to take a running back here, and then somebody gets Travis Kelce at the beginning of the 3rd round, and they're like giddy about it. So yeah, definitely just pay attention. Kind of. I mean, even if it is, just do some mock drafts or just kind of map out. Like, okay, look at the ADP and say like, okay, if I draft at pick 5, if you really want to take it serious, what would a team look like, and kind of mess around with it. It's always interesting, and always look out for those guys that you're high on. That if they have a bad first week or 2, they might be interested in.
And yes, attempt to take advantage of these league owner. There will be people this year in fantasy that win their leagues because they got a great trade deal after week 1 on Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, so always be on the look for that. Hopefully you're in a league. That's always fun. If you're in active leagues where people are willing to trade, that makes everything more fun. Assuming people aren't doing any shenanigans where they're doing some crazy trades, spouses or best friends, they're just like trading, and just trying to build this mega
You
team.
have friends that try to help you? Because I only have friends I play fantasy with that try to hurt.
No, it's like if you have a really good friend, and then you have like it depends, like like the hierarchy of friends. They're like, but they really hate this friend, so they're like, I don't really like you, but I really hate that guy. So here, I'm gonna do this because you're playing them and I want them to lose.
I must always be the 3rd guy in that situation. Because I never
how do they always
get the deal?
How do they always have a great wait? How do they get this guy? So, anyways, thank you so much. I feel like we spent a lot of time. This was supposed to be only quarterback and running back, and
but
we'll
Butler
see
just loves tight ends.
How much I cut out of the tight end discussion, but maybe some, because there was quite a lot of it. But if you're at the end and you're like, there wasn't that much, it's probably because I just cut out like half the episode and it was all about George Kittle, and like that's all I talked about. But thank you so much for watching. Hit the like if you made it this far. You probably like the video. I mean, that's probably a good sign. Hit the like, subscribe, and we'll be back. Plan is every Tuesday and Friday. That's always subject to change. Any last words?
I got nothing.
All right. Take it easy. Peace.
See ya.